Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Januszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Happy New Year, Chip. How are you?
How do you do 2022? I'm doing great. How are you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. We've got a brand new year, and I'm looking forward to it being much better than 2020 and 2021 as we start to return to some sort of normalcy.
I approve your message.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about communications, specifically how, as a small business, you can communicate with your customers and what to do when misinformation arises. And the reason we're talking about this is this actually occurred with a small business in Connecticut this past week. There is a toy store, I'd say mini chain, called Amato's. They've been around for 60 years. They've got 2 locations plus an online store. Well, the owner of one of those locations, and this is a family-owned business, so each location is owned by a different family member. And the location in New Britain, Connecticut, the owner of this has decided it is time to retire. And he had no one to take over that particular store. So the decision was made to close that one store. The reason I specify that one store is because the local paper, the Hartford Courant, picked up the story and reported that gave the impression that the entire chain of stores was closing. Well, for obvious reasons, this caused a lot of problems for the owner of the other Amato's store, which is remaining open. And not only is it remaining open, they've already got somebody to take over when this owner decides to retire. So they can be open for a good 30 years or so past this. And they were forced to start contacting media, contacting customers, telling them, no, we are not closing.
Yeah, I actually remember seeing it on. I didn't see it in the Current, but I on Channel 30 News one night I saw that, and I think it was probably before. I didn't know anything about the Current side of things, but on Channel 30 they were crystal clear that it was just the one store that was closing and the other one was staying open, and they were very upfront as far as that the owner's retiring and couldn't find anybody to take it over. So. Obviously, as far as misinformation goes, the most important thing to start is to get it right, and then to contact the people just like you're talking about to set them straight as far as what's going on.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, in this case, what happened was the store that's remaining open was inundated with calls. Oh my God, what's going on? Longtime customers calling in. Fortunately, they have been a longtime advertiser in the Hartford Courant, and they were able to call their representative and go, you guys screwed up this story. You need to make it right. So they reached out to the local press, but keeping the lines of communication open with your customers is always important. For example, having an email list of your customers, they can send out an email within 10, 20 minutes of finding out what had happened, telling all of their customers, no, we are not closing. So it's important to set up these channels of communication ahead of time, so when something like this happens, you're ready and you can reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't go and take a look at anything online or anything like that, but I'm sure that if they had a website or their social media pages and that kind of thing, I'm sure that they plastered right on top there, "We're staying open," or something like that, just so that people, because really, I mean, reaction number one these days is just go online and look it up. So you got to make sure that all those bases are covered as far as any place there could be a headline about anything.
And that is something else they did. They did. They have their social media channels. They had their Facebook page. They went right on there and posted the correction to let people know that yes, they were staying open. But again, this is why you have to set these things up in advance. Imagine if this store did not have an email list of their customers, did not use social media. And yes, there are still a lot of businesses that don't have Facebook pages, that don't have LinkedIn pages, that don't have Twitter accounts. And if this happened to one of them, they would have a hard time reaching out to their customers. So, yes, this is why you need to not just have the channels, but use them on a regular basis. And that's key because you need to get people used to looking there. This way, when you have something really important to post, you know that people are already checking it. So you need to post regularly on social media. You need to send regular emails out, an email newsletter to customers. Communications has to be on a regular basis. And you need to be able to respond to customers. A long time ago, you could send out a print newsletter, nobody would respond, and communication was one way. Now, communications is two-way. Not only do you have to be able to reach out to your customers, you have to be able to respond when your customers reach out to you.
Yeah, we talk all the time about business strategic planning, and this is one of the points that you have to have a strategic plan for as a business. And it's not just the proactive going out there as far as we're going to be telling our customers that this is going on and that's going on and so on and so forth. But you do have to have that what if scenarios where you can cover this thing if something like that does happen.
Yeah, and unfortunately, things like this happen more often than not. I was actually talking with a public relations crisis communications expert, and we started talking about this. And she had a number of nursing homes as clients during COVID. And very often, the news got, especially community newspapers, where a lot of local people still get their news, got a lot of information wrong because COVID was a major news story. And these folks were not used to covering it. They were used to covering, oh, a new business opens, somebody gets an award. But when real news took place, they were unprepared. So the nursing homes had to deal with all sorts of bad information getting out that they had to be in position to correct.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, obviously what got emphasized was the nursing homes that were having problems with cases and deaths and things like that. But a lot of nursing homes did a wonderful job through this whole thing just by being safe and so on. But obviously the whole industry got a really, really, I'll call it an alarming rap just because of, older people in place because they're more vulnerable, being quarantined, not being able to see family. And these were the things that were emphasized. And obviously, when you're going through a pandemic, you're going to hear a lot of these stories, and people are definitely going to empathize with that. But I'm sure that the image of nursing homes as a whole, the bad stuff that was going on, the stuff that was, really, sad to see, affected everybody in ways.
Absolutely. And, as I said, these reporters covering it were not used to covering that kind of news. But that's not the only way misinformation happens. And sometimes it comes from what you would think would be a very reliable source. Case in point, this past week, the Supreme Court was listening to cases regarding Biden's vaccine mandates. And Justice Sotomayor made the comment that 100,000 children were currently hospitalized because of COVID, and many of them were on ventilators. Now, this isn't even close to true. In fact, less than 87,000 children have been hospitalized since the summer of 2020. So to say the current number was 100,000 was very, misleading. But I'm sure a lot of people, when the information comes from a Supreme Court justice, you assume it's true. So you have to be ready to see when this information comes out and not just be able to correct it, but be able to find accurate sources so that you know what information is true before you repeat it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have the microphone out there and are able to talk about different things, but it really behooves them to make sure that their information is straight before they start talking about it too. I mean, it's obviously what's been going on for the last 2 years is so easy to talk about, and everybody's got their, opinion and their stories and this and that, whatever. But if you take everything as the gospel truth, and while somebody just said it without really doing any of the research and so on and so forth, obviously that's where you get into trouble. And that's what we're talking about here today is, how you react to that and get that out really quick to make sure that the record is set straight. But obviously we're like in a panic driven world these days. So it's really not hard to set something off.
And that's something that's very important to remember. Is rule number one of all of this is don't panic. Take that step back. And we've talked about this over and over again, how that knee-jerk reaction to anything can cause problems. You need to be able to take that step back, take a breath, and look things up before you react. Now, I was a reporter for a long time. And when I was trained as a reporter, you did not put a story out unless you had at least 3 independent sources, at least one of which was willing to go on the record. Now, that doesn't happen anymore. Now, news goes out with one very often unverified source. So if you're in the position where that misinformation is about you, your best bet is to have at least 3 ways to get the correct news out. And the more ways you've got of reaching out. Now, this can be, again, email, social media we talked about. This can be press contacts. This can be text messages to your customers. Whatever the method is, the more ways you can hit it so that the correct information is available, the better off you are. The reporters are not going to be looking necessarily for 3 sources, but if you can provide 3 different sources of your own with the correct information, it becomes so much easier for the people you're trying to reach to find that good information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, news has gone from ABC, CBS, NBC back when I was growing up and some radio stations to absolutely everything everywhere. And back then, you did look to the news to find out an accurate depiction of what was going on in the world and this and so on and so forth. And what's happening has happened over the years with all the different ways that things can get out is news now is covering everything. And mostly it's covering people's opinions about things and reactions and so on and so forth, most of which have no foundation. So that's why we're really, really vulnerable to all this stuff these days. But, even a Supreme Court person or other people out there that otherwise are very, very credible can get in trouble by joining that bandwagon and often their opinion without really knowing what they're talking about.
Right. So the the point of all of this is that you need to be proactive. You need to be creating these communication channels before any misinformation gets out. So, how do you do that? Well, step one is creating content on a regular basis. Now, this is not just sales content, but it does include sales content. You need to be producing information that your customers and potential customers are interested in. Now, this doesn't mean you have to write, 12 articles a week. You can put up a couple of short social media posts, no more than 2 or 3 sentences. You can find articles that are being published in trade papers, in business magazines, in local papers that you think people will find of interest and repost them. But the idea is to post social media, blogs, emails on a regular basis. And the more you do it, the better. Now, you don't want to be posting so often that it's interfering with actually running your business. But the more information you post, the better off you are, especially when it comes to the search engines. And I've taught workshops on how to create content and content marketing. And one of the examples that I always give as to why you want to be creating content on a regular basis is the difference between myself and my father. I create content on a regular basis for my business, and I have for the past 12 years. As a result, when you go to Google and you Google either my name or the Modern Observer Group's name, you're going to have to dig pretty far down before you find content that I didn't have some hand in creating. So the message that's getting out there, I know for a fact it's all accurate and all things I want people to see because I've been creating content for so long. The flip side of this is my father. Now, my father passed away in 1981. So obviously, he never did anything on the internet. There was no internet back then. But I found to great upset, quite frankly, if I were to put his name in Google, one of the first things that came up was his death certificate, complete with social security number, making it easy for somebody to steal his identity. So these are two extreme examples. One, I've been creating content constantly for, well over a decade. He never did anything online at all. But you can see the results. And when somebody Googles your name or your business, you want to make sure that what comes up is what you are trying to get people to see.
Yeah, and a lot of what you do too, which is very, very important for business, especially in doing what you're doing, is provide that value added, just like you're talking about. I mean, I see this all the time from you, obviously, is posting links to articles and this and that, whatever, just to really help people who are interested in those types of things learn more about it. And business is a lot more than just products and services. It's how you make your customer feel. And I know that you have a program to get these things out often to people so that they can pick and choose where they want to go. But you are definitely out there, and it's so important to make sure that you are in control, just like the Modern Observer Group is with everything that you're doing, so that's front and center for everything. So coming up with a plan to do this value added is really, really important. Possibly getting your clients and other, the public and maybe other people out there, strategic partners involved with doing what you're doing community wise and this and that. There's a whole lot of different ways to just generate reasons to post things. And the more of a positive spin you put on these things these days, the better off it's going to be, for your credibility, but for everybody out there in general, because people really are looking to see a lot more good news too.
Absolutely. And you said something that's very important about getting partners involved. An important part of creating content is actually receiving content. Subscribe to newsletters, subscribe to emails from businesses that you respect, follow people on social media who post interesting things, and then you're involved in being informed and you can spread that information. So, you don't have to be creating all of this. It's just as important to spread information that other people are putting out. And very often, it can be very beneficial to you as well. One of the things that we repost on a regular basis is an article from CNBC. One of their commentators wrote an article online about 5 things that you should be spending money on if you want to succeed. And one of those was a business coach. Well, we do business coaching. So we spread that, as far as we could, letting people see, yes, it's not just us that's saying, well, look, our products and services are important for you to succeed. We're spreading CNBC saying it. When you get more information in, you can put more information out. And one of the reasons we're talking about this today is because I get so much information in that this story about Amados hit my screen first thing in the morning when I logged in. So it's very important for you to be informed so that you can inform others.
Yeah, and obviously, if there's positive testimonials out there for the line of work that you are in, business coaching, and so on and so forth, I mean, that's instant. Testimonials are validating, and obviously, they're more powerful than you telling people that you're the best business coach in the world, because just by seeing what other people are saying, it's so important. I mean, that's networking 101. It's why most networking meetings end with testimonials about people, because part of networking meetings is doing a commercial and tell people what you do. But if somebody else stands up and says, Eric did a fantastic job helping me with this, and this with my business, that's a totally unsolicited validation for you that is 1,000 times more powerful than anything you could possibly say or post about your business.
Exactly. When other people repost your communications, it gives you instant credibility. And again, a very important thing to remember is that even when you're not posting information directly related to sales, when you're posting educational information about what you do, about general topics involved in what you do, this is building your credibility. As much as business owners would like to think they can sell anybody, customers tend to buy on their schedule, not the businesses. So it's important that you're out there communicating with potential clients long before they're ready to buy. This way, when they finally make that decision, they go, oh, you know what? I've seen so much great information from these folks. They really know what they're talking about. I'm going to contact them to use their product or services. So it all connects. Even when you're not directly selling, you're still building credibility in order to sell. So it benefits sales and marketing when you're putting out educational material or when you're just spreading good information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about networking and we talk about business in general, I mean, as you said, people only buy things when they need or want it. So what it's up to the business to do is to be ready when those people need it or want it by being known as a credible, trusting person that will be able to provide these products and services to the client when they're looking for that. And the beauty of networking and all these relationships that you're talking about developing as far as communications go is that a lot of people know that you're the person to go to for that. And so that's out there. So, I mean, basically, what you're doing is you're just doing your business on the one thing, doing a great job of what you're doing, but you are actually getting people out there prepared to call on you when they need to call on you. And they don't know when that's going to happen, but they do know that you're out there.
Exactly. And to bring this full circle, when that misinformation comes about, if you've been proactive, if you've been creating content, if you've been communicating with clients and potential clients on a regular basis through newsletters, through in-person, one-on-one video calls, through networking events, however it is that you're reaching out to them, it's that much easier for you to go, no, that information was wrong. Here's what's really happening. Because you've got the channels in place, you've built the credibility. You don't want to be waiting until you absolutely need to create these channels to start working on them. They need to be in place before you need them. And that's true about your social media channels. It's true about email marketing. It's true about networking. You need to build your network before you actually need it. It's often said, the best time to be able to network is when you don't need it. It's the same thing, if you're looking for a job. Right now, we're in the middle of what they're calling the Great Resignation, as people are leaving their jobs and looking for new ones. Well, you don't want to have to start creating a network when you're looking for a job. You want to have that network in place when you're before that happens. This way, when you're ready, you go, hey, I'm looking for a new job. If you can keep your ears open. You want all of these things in place before you need to use them. All right. So we are just about at the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for today?
Well, this is our first show for 2022. And the first thing that we talked about as far as having your communication strategy out there is to not be just reactive. But the word for the year and the New Year's resolution for all businesses, especially when it's coming to a communication strategy, is to be proactive. Put together your strategy as far as how you're going to communicate with your customers, how often, and also covering all the what ifs for when things are going out. And as you do a lot, basically use other people's wonderful materials out there. The more value that you provide, the better off you're going to be. But the takeaway for this year, and a great time to take this as a New Year's resolution, is be proactive.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes. 2022, we're coming, hopefully we're coming out of the pandemic. Things over the last couple of years have changed dramatically. This is the time. If you haven't already put a strategy in place, be proactive and put the channels in place that you need going forward. Grow your business, grow yourself, and start the process now. There's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. The same thing goes for the strategy. The best time to put it together was, whenever you started your business or whenever you started planning. If you haven't done it then, the second best time is to do it right now. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us each week at the xvadio.com website, going to xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.